Good morning. My name is Janet Hicks, and I'm professor and director of the Mental Health Counseling Program. This is a very special day. Let me introduce our dean, Dr. Daryl Gwaltney, who will come up and give some opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome you to this, the inaugural living ceremony of the Master of Arts in Mental Health Counseling Program, College of Theology and Christian Ministry at Belmont University. Sounds good. But it is our first living ceremony. This is our first class of students. College of Theology and Christian Ministry has a couple key initiatives. One is contemplative spirituality, and the other is social justice. We believe that the work that we do, both with undergraduate students and now graduate students as well, is about equipping men and women to be people who follow their vocational call to work with the lives of people in the way God is at work in them. So to have a counseling program in a college of theology is not as counterintuitive as you may think it to be. Because for us, we believe very much so that the men and women who are in our mental health counseling program are people who have worked very hard and will continue to work to understand who they are and how God is at work in their life and whom God is calling them to be. But to recognize that the way God is at work in their life calls them to be at work for good in the lives of other men and women, and to bring justice to them. There are fewer things more important than any of us can do than to sit down with another person and listen, and perhaps help them be the person that they're called to be. I am delighted to have you here today, but even more so, I'm delighted that these individuals are first graduates of the Mental Health Counseling Program so well represent the ideas not only of Belmont University, but of the College of Theology and Christian Ministry. And our hope that people will be tuned into who they are and how they can help change the world. And each of these men and women exemplify that. And we're delighted to be here today celebrating your achievements.
Would you pray with me? Well, in mystery, we pause to name gratefully the gifts that surround us here. Give us wisdom and courage enough to imagine a new time in which each of us in our own way can be a gift. Time after time, we have wondered at this world, the integrity of the earth, the intricacy of its systems, and the imperfections of our own. We have grieved the ravaging of the environment and immersed ourselves in the labors of science and of art to save it, to a planet that still awaits the ratification of our commitment. Give us as a gift. Day by day, we have felt the care of those who labor around us and on our behalf. the skilled hands that have nourished our bodies and maintained our living spaces and looked after our records, the discipline of the minds that have given us tools to shape our thinking, the steadfast love of family and friends who have believed for us what we have not always been able to believe for ourselves. These gifts have been our daily bread. To a human family that hungers for such nourishment as this, and still cannot be fully confident it will find what it needs to sustain life, give us as a gift. Over and over again, we have watched as the scourges of war and want have distorted identity and imprisoned hope. Injustice and corruption, greed and indifference have twisted the noblest image of humanity. To a world where there is sometimes so much to fear and so little to trust, give us as a gift. Give us ears for the questions. Give us hearts for the answers. Give us bread for the journey. Give us impatience for the beginning. Give us hope for the end. We are bold to ask these things and eager to offer these things in the name of all that is holy to each of us alone and all that is holy to all of us together. Amen.
My name is Laila Bonner, and I'm a faculty member in the Mental Health Counseling Program. I'm delighted to have the honor of introducing today's speaker. Dr. Oliver Benton Curtis grew up in the Deep South during the World War II years. Life was slow and simple: radio, baseball, shelling peas on the front porch. His father was a civil engineer. His mother was a nurse. He was the middle of 3 children. School, church, and neighborhood were the communities that formed him. Somewhere in high school, he decided to become a minister. He was fascinated study of the Bible. Later, he was fascinated with how this applied to the dilemma of being human. Still later, he learned how to sit and listen to the story of another person. Much later, he learned how to track that story in the unraveling of God's presence in ordinary moments. Over time, he learned to picture a person as the image of God who is carrying a hidden seed. Only time and experience and suffering and grace invite that seed to emerge. That is what Dr. Curtis tried to do in every course he taught. Establish the conditions: inquiry, reflection, honesty, safety, where seeds are beginning to sprout. It works. Raising 2 bright children and living with an even brighter wife and being trained by 3 golden retrievers has been his best laboratory in life. God has been good to him. He considers Belmont to have been a fun place to do serious. Please help me welcome the College of Theology and Christian Ministries Professor Emeritus, Dr. Ben Curtis.
Well, I had a dream last night. This is a true story. That I was back in the classroom at Belmont. Now, I've been retired for 10 days. already dreaming of being back in the classroom. That might be a nightmare. And so I'm lecturing away, and there are two students out in the middle who are chattering away to each other incessantly, irritatingly. And I am just about to publicly address them with a very ugly word. And it dawns on me there are 4 or 5 parents in the room. For some reason, they're just visiting their children. And I'm thinking, no, I don't think that would be a good idea. So I want my Dean Waltney, to know that even in retirement, I'm beginning to clean up my act. And I'm trying to preserve the reputation of the College of Theology, where we are all godly people. And we train our counseling students to be sensitive and compassionate. They would never use a word like that. When I was a senior in high school in Jackson, Mississippi, student government officers from all over the state boarded Greyhound buses for a trip to Arlington, Virginia. We stopped for a visit on the campus of the University of Virginia. It was a gorgeous, crisp fall day. Trees aflame with red and yellow leaves. I stood wide-eyed in the white light, absorbing my first view of a big college campus. I watched as a young male professor made his way nonchalantly across the grass. He was wearing a tweed jacket with elbow patches, a button-down collar shirt with a striped tie, khakis and penny loafers. He had a short beard. My stomach did flip-flops. I didn't know it at the time, but I was seeing my future. That's exactly how I would dress as a young male professor. Catching sight of him opened up something in me at a depth that unconsciously lured me toward my path. Fast forward 5 years. It was Saturday afternoon in the single men's dorm at Southern Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. The day before, I had finished my last final exam of the fall semester. 4 days of hectic writing and sleepless study. A friend came by and we went to a big 2-story white house where the only location of Kentucky Fried Chicken existed in the world, run by Colonel Sanders himself. We got a bucket of chicken, some biscuits and slaw, and went back to the dorm, and we ate the whole thing. And then I did something that I could no longer do. I slept until noon the next day. Another friend came by and invited me to see a movie with him. It was entitled David and Lisa. It's a movie about 2 teenage patients in a mental hospital. David was a very bright, obsessive kid who could not stand to be touched by anyone and always had to know exactly what time it was. Lisa was a hysteric girl whose feelings were always running loose, and they were good friends. One night in the basement of one of the buildings on campus, David accidentally ran into his psychiatrist, who was looking for something while eating a piece of cake and drinking a glass of milk. offered David some cake and milk, and they started talking casually at first, and then bit by bit, intentionally. David talked, the psychiatrist listened. David talked, the psychiatrist listened. Then he would take what he had heard and he would slice just a little deeper. And 20 minutes later, they were talking about the things that had terrified and paralyzed David. Once again, I stared wide-eyed. How did he just sit and listen and accompany in a way that freed up this kid to start living? Once again, my stomach did flip-flops because I was saying to myself, without knowing it, if ever I teach, I want to be able to sit with my students and listen in a way that they can begin to hear themselves and to claim their own voice. And without knowing it, something was opening up in me that would lead me toward my path. Fast forward again 10 years. I'm sitting in the upstairs den of a big white 2-story house overlooking a magnolia tree in Milledgeville, Georgia. By the way, the rent on that house was $85 a month. I'm working as a chaplain to children and adolescents at the State Mental Hospital, and the telephone rings, and it's John Tulliver, who was chairman of the Department of Religion at Belmont College. There's an opening in his department, and he's been given my name by Mike Haywalk, who taught here a long time, who was a legendary teacher here for a long time. We had been classmates at Baylor. So he wants to talk. It's winter, it's cold, it's raining. I've already had a glass of wine or two, and I am ready to talk without any inhibition. We talk freely and honestly about my background, my interests, my dreams. My last question to him was, will you protect me from the craziness of the Baptist if I come? And he laughed and said, Belmont was too small to be on anybody's radar screen. That was 44 years ago. One of my mentors has been Robert Johnson, a Jungian analyst in California. For 5 years in a row, I attended Journey into Wholeness, a conference in North Carolina that was dedicated to the integration of the thoughts of Carl Jung with Christian theology. Robert Johnson was the only speaker who was invited every year. He was shy. Introverted. He was a bachelor. He had amazing insights into what makes human beings tick. One summer afternoon, we stood talking at the airport in Nashville because both of our flights were weather delayed. He said, Ben, I'm a happy man, and I don't know many people who can say that. I'm doing what I was born to do. And if ever I write a memoir, I'm going to entitle it Slender Threads, because that is what my life has turned on. 3 years later, he did write his memoir, and he lied. He entitled it Balancing Heaven and Earth. But he did call the prologue Slender Threads. And this is what he said. It's an audacious notion to put forth in this age of science and willful determination that one's existence is somehow inspired, guided, even managed by unseen forces outside of our control, whether called fate, destiny, or the hand of God. Slender threads are at work, bringing coherence and continuity to our lives. Over time, they weave a remarkable tapestry. What are these slender threads? Being in a particular place at just the right time, meeting someone who steers you in an unforeseen direction, the unexpected appearance of work or money or inspiration just when it's most needed. These are the mysterious forces that guide and shape who we are. They are the patterns that give meaning to our existence. Frederick Buechner said, "Our vocation arrives on our doorstep when our deepest joy intersects with the world's greatest need." This does not happen by magic. It emerges through hunches, intuitions, taking risks, following roads that are dead ends, falling on our face, getting up, being the little engine that puffs, "I think I can, I think I can." And lo and behold, we are on our path and 1,000 hands are materializing to make that possible. So I stand up here as a very ordinary person with very ordinary ability who had extraordinary mentors. Myron Madden, Jewel C., Gerald May, Parker Palmer. People who taught me the importance of living from the inside out and not from the outside in. And that if you take your ego out of the picture and listen well, you can listen people into listening to themselves for the first time, and that is the real existential meaning of saving a soul. So Robert Johnson, the shy Union